I really had no idea what I was in for when I chose to review the TurboGrafx game Devil's Crush. As someone who grew up loving pinball in the arcades in the 80s and 90s, I thought it would be a fun way to spend some time with a different yet still seasonally appropriate video game, one that I had never actually gotten to play back as being a child. It wasn't until I fully completed the TurboGrafx version that I discovered this game was also remade for the Sega Genesis, but known as Dragon's Fury. Localized and released by Tengen, I suddenly found myself going back and playing through that version of the game as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at Devil's Crush for the TurboGrafx and Dragon's Fury for the Genesis and see if either of them is worth your gaming time this Halloween. Devil's Crush was originally released for the TurboGrafx 16 in 1990. A follow-up to their 1988 pinball game Alien Crush, Devil's Crush features a single vertical scrolling table made up of 3 separate play areas filled with targets such as undead warriors, chanting monks, dragon eggs, these things, spinning stars, demon bumpers, these other things, and nearly everything you can target will trigger some kind of reaction or help to unlock entrances to one of the game's bonus stages you'll need to beat. Dragon's Fury for the Genesis retains this exact gameplay style, although let's start with the first glaringly obvious change, and that's that the playfield itself is reduced in size, since on the Genesis they've added the status of your bonus points and opening of stages to the right of the screen. This can be handy to look at when you're trying to rack up a huge score, but I actually prefer the wider playing field of Devil's Crush. Even though the gameplay is the same, it feels like there is overall more room to play on, and it lets more of the action fill your screen and your eyeballs. Making shots feels more accurate on the Genesis, although as we'll see, both games' physics kinda leave something to be desired. The other major visual difference to the main game is that Dragon's Fury presents a much brighter and colorful playfield, which I think actually takes away from the mood presented in the TurboGrafx 16 version. The oversaturation of colors also causes some of the sprites to not be as well defined as they should have been, especially when put against some of the very loud and similarly colored backgrounds on the Genesis. I appreciate that with the Genesis, Tengen might have felt obligated to try and tap into the additional power of the system and the color palette available for their remake, but pinball is a game that requires fast reactions and precision aim, and those extra moments needed to differentiate your intended target from other targets around it can be enough to send your pinball rolling off the playfield with an errant shot. At the center of the table is what the game's original packaging refers to as the She-Giant, a woman so beautiful when she is sleeping, but so evil when she awakens. Insert your own wife or girlfriend joke here. Throughout the whole game, a disembodied skull will be continually following the path of your ball with its one beady eye, which I thought was a nice touch, but what's not as nice is when he stops to laugh in your face at your failure when your ball falls off the playfield into the pinball abyss. Across from him, there's a large blue dragon guarding his little egg nest, but if you poke that dragon enough times in his head, he'll begin to wake up and shoot fireballs at you, which once again allows you to launch the ball into something's mouth in order to reach a bonus stage. This small tower in the middle might be the most useful target in the entire game, since entering it causes a similar tower to pop up at the bottom of the screen, protecting your ball from being lost down the drain below your flippers. Knock the ball into this tower enough times and it will lead you to another of the game's 6 bonus stages. Now, one thing I personally find fun about video pinball is the things you can do with it that you would never be able to do in a real-world pinball game. Smashing open the dragon eggs will release tiny dragonlings onto the field that fly around temporarily, and coming into contact with the bumpers enough times will cause them to crack open, which causes another wave of enemies to be released onto the playfield. Finally, the upper part of the playfield challenges you to fight off a circle of druids, marching around a larger chant circle, blocking you from trying to knock down the 4 skull targets above them. Like we mentioned earlier, there are a number of different boss battles and fights you can get into by entering the bonus stages in either game. With the exception of a couple of stages, the Genesis features all new bonus rounds for you to tackle. The majority of these, though, while graphically more enhanced, really focus around nailing a boss in the head or breaking open some kind of jars in order to conquer the stage. Both games handle well enough, but neither of them are going to win any awards for pinball physics, let's be honest. Of course, this was made 30 plus years ago, so given the hardware, it's certainly serviceable even if there are some frustratingly un-pinball-like things going on. The ball would occasionally get caught in a sort of gameplay loop, with the ball taking the exact same reactionary path back and forth between targets or between enemies, unless I happened to tilt the table or an enemy got in its path. Another time on the TurboGrafx version, something like this would occasionally occur. Each game actually has a somewhat secret task of earning 1 billion points in a single game. Should you accomplish this on the TurboGrafx version of Devil's Crush, the playfield will immediately start to go dark and explode in flames. A small cutscene will occur along with some very cryptic dialogue that really doesn't tell you much, and then you're immediately returned to the title screen to start a brand new game. That's it. In the Genesis version, Tengen actually added a final bonus scene, challenging you to fight off the evil boss along with his guards, hit him enough times with your pinball to reduce his life to 0, and we get something a little bit similar again, a little bit of a different cutscene. Credits will scroll, the same cryptic message, and back to the title screen. So there really isn't much more to the game outside of having fun with it and challenging yourself to reach a higher score, but it has enough action and gameplay to make it fun for a few hours, maybe on Halloween afternoon while you're waiting for trick-or-treaters to come and beg for your candy, or maybe you're just a pinball junkie like me and you want to check out whatever is out there that you might have missed growing up, and that's the fun of exploring retro gaming. You never quite know where it might take you and what you might discover. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'll be back soon with another retro game for your enjoyment.